we are going to, today is going to be more of a chat than a demo because we're going to talk about freestanding lace. And the reason we're going to do that is because I'm thinking about it and I'm looking for input. I'm thinking about doing every now and then doing a section on, on embroidery. So if you would like tips and tricks and help on machine embroidery, let us know, because a lot of the questions that we get about machine embroidery are pretty basic questions that I feel like when people are getting their embroidery machines, they're not getting the education that goes along with it. So we are going to try to help you out with the basics on that stuff. So I tried to think of what the easiest thing was to demo with machine embroidery. And so I picked freestanding lace because you really only need one product and it's pretty straightforward. There are some rules or some best practices with freestanding lace. So if you have questions about any of the stuff I'm going to talk about, type them in the chat and Rebecca will holler them out at me. But in the meantime, we're just going to talk about best practices. Are we good?
Well, one person just said that you had mentioned you were going to learn to make a 1-yard bag.
I did.
And do you know when that will be?
I made a video already. That will probably not be a Monday video, but it will be a standalone video. I just have to edit it. So DJ recorded me making the whole bag, and it took me like 10 minutes to make the whole bag. So we're going to edit that down and make it like a 2-minute video to give you the tips. It's really easy and it's a lot of fun. So that probably won't be a Monday video because we could if you want to, but okay. If you don't know what freestanding lace is, this is an example of freestanding lace. This is actually the project we did in our Kimberbell Club last month. It is an envelope. The thing that makes it freestanding lace is that it is literally just made in the embroidery machine see-through lace. Okay, so this is an envelope that we made. And I didn't finish it off because I wanted to show it to you flat, so it makes lace. You can see that there's nothing in between the little holes here, and it's signed. And I tried to make mine to look kind of Victorian looking. The last thing to finish this is you just fold this part up, and then I'm just going to take it to my sewing machine and sew the 2 sides down. You can whip stitch it too, but I'm just going to sew the 2 sides down, and then you button it and you can put love notes in it. Isn't that cute? Here's the thing about freestanding lace, and I think what freaks people out is you can see through it. There's nothing holding it together. The secret to that is that you have to use a stabilizer that will completely wash away. My preferred stabilizer is Floriani's Wet and Gone. We carry this in all 3 sizes. This is a pretty basic, straightforward stabilizer. The Wet and Gone all by itself, that's not fusible and is not tacky, and is not, you don't spray it with water to make it sticky, is pretty much only good for freestanding lace if you're using it by itself. There's other applications where you combine it with other things to do other things, but in this instance, we're going to make freestanding lace, so we're only going to talk about this stabilizer, okay? I am going to show you one other option for using the tacky version of it, but for today's demo, we're just going to talk about Wet and Gone. You can see through it. It is not tear away, okay? It is not going to tear. The reason I prefer Floriani's Wet and Gone to other products that are on the market, one, you can put this down your drain. It is completely non-toxic. You can put this in your mouth if you want to, like I have. In fact, earlier today I had a roll of this that the paper had fallen out, and it doesn't look that different from the no-show mesh. It's similar to no-show mesh. I've used it enough now that I can tell the difference, but if you're not sure, you can literally take a piece of this, put it in your mouth, and if it starts to get sticky and dissolve, it's Wet and Gone. It's basically cornstarch, okay? So see how it's all gummy just from that little bit of wet? I'm not saying you should make a snack out of this, but it is non-toxic. The other wash away stabilizers that I have had in the past say in big letters, don't pour this down the drain. I don't know that I want to use it if I can't put it in my sink. This stuff completely washes away and it is safe for the environment. So if you don't want to put it down your sink, you can put it in a bowl of water, you can wash it out, you can dump it in the grass, it's fine. It's basically cornstarch, okay? That's why I prefer this. It is not a ripping stabilizer. It is not a cutaway stabilizer. Yes, you can cut it, but the idea is that it's gonna go away in water, okay? So I've got a mess on my table, so DJ's gonna flip the camera around so we can talk about things like hooping, okay? Depending on the number of stitches in your design. So when you pull up a design, I have a design on my screen right now. When you pull up your design, if you look here at the top of the screen, this will tell you that the design that I made in the embroidery machine right now says there's 12,000 stitches. You could probably stitch out 12,000 stitches on one layer of Wet and Gone, but depending on how stiff you want it to be, once I get over about 8,000 stitches, I usually use 2 layers. Is it overkill? Probably a little bit, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I usually use the 20-inch wide roll because then I can just cut off one piece, fold it in half. I don't even have to cut it. This is my 5x7 hoop. And when you hoop it, it is probably the easiest stabilizer to hoop for a number of reasons. One, you're not going to put fabric in there, so it doesn't really matter. You just lay it in your hoop, line up your lines, and pop that down in there. Now, if you have fullness or you have puckers, like there's a little bit of fullness in here, you can literally just hold the top of your hoop and pull it taut. You can't do that with all stabilizers, but with this particular one, you can. I usually pull one layer at a time to make sure that it gets in there flat. So it's in there pretty taut, okay? Since I'm gonna do freestanding lace, I don't have to do anything else with my hoop because it's going to go in the machine and the stitching is going to make the lace, okay? And I've got a couple of examples of what the difference of that is. So hooping, pretty straightforward. This is 2 layers of Wet and Gone, and I'm just going to pull it tight on the sides. It's in there pretty good, okay? Now, here's another reason we talk about using Wet and Gone as opposed to the other things that shall not be named. Here's an example of from the box store stabilizer. It is a wash away. This is a pretty sad angel.
Nobody likes anything limp.
Limp is never a compliment. That is true. Especially lettuce, fabric, flowers, you know. Or this is 2 layers of Wet and Gone. Yeah, you're moving the camera with your chuckles of yourself. Crackhead. This is our angel stitched out with Wet and Gone. Now, she's probably about 2 years old now, and she still stands up really nice and straight. This morning when I got her out of the cupboard, one of her wings was just a little bit droopy, so I'll show you a tip on how to fix that up, and it's really easy. All I'm saying is this stabilizer cost us about $1 more than this one did. Okay, go with the product that does the thing you want it to do. Okay, so we have our fallen angel and our proud angel. The cost difference is not worth the time and the effort of all of this stitching to just make this sad angel. Okay, so there's those. Now here's some more tips. When you stitch freestanding lace, you can stitch out your design. This looks like this for the most part, right? It looks like there's stitches in the background that are going to stabilize it. It looks like if you wash this away, you're going to have lace. This design was not digitized as freestanding lace, okay? And I'm going to show you what happens if you stitch out something that looks lacy but is not digitized properly to be lace. Okay, so I'm just gonna, this is warm water. Now when you wash away your stabilizer, you want warm water, not cool water, not hot water. So warm water. And I'm just gonna sort of massage this. The stabilizer disappears and so does the design. This was not a freestanding lace design. It looked like it was, but it wasn't. Okay, this is now garbage. But you see how fast that dissolved? So what I do when I've got a design that I'm going to trim away, I trim it pretty close because I don't want to waste the time trying to wash out those extra pieces. I don't get crazy about it. I just trim away most of the extra and drop it in the water. I usually do this in the sink because if you run the tap over it, then it dissolves faster. But look at how fast that goes away. It's pretty much gone already. Now, if you want your lace to be a little firmer, leave little bits of it in there. Just sort of dunk it and rinse it and then take it out and let it dry. And keep doing that until you can't see the background stabilizer anymore. But if you want it to be a stiffer, like if you want it to stand up like the angel there, you might not want to wash away all of your stabilizer, okay? The other thing I do is when, my fingers are sticky, when I have a design like this, I will take my scissors, I'll trim away to the edge like that. I don't get crazy about it. I just don't want to wait for all of this stuff to dissolve. I do, however, take this stuff and put it in a Ziploc baggie with a label on it and save it. Because what happens is I can take this stuff, I can cut off a chunk, I can put it into a little bit of water, and I can make like a paste. And that's what I did with the angel here, whose one side of her wing was just a little bit floppy. You can either, with a paintbrush, you can put it on there, or you can put in a spray bottle and spray it on. And then I took and I pinned her to my wool mat and let her dry. So that fluffed her little wing up how it needs to be. So don't throw these little pieces away because you can use them, okay? So what I did was I trimmed this away. I haven't tested this one yet, so we're gonna see what happens. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about thread, okay? So when you're going to go and wet out your design, this is 2 layers of Wet and Gone. So you can just sort of rinse it until it gets soft and squishy. See, my design didn't fall apart. That's because it was digitized properly to be freestanding lace. And now if I just sort of rub the edges of my snowflake, the extra bits of stabilizer are going to come away. Now, if I want to keep this as an ornament, which is what it was designed to be, see, it's got a little hanging sleeve, I might leave the little there in the middle just to make it I'm going to keep rinsing this until all of those pieces are gone and all right, you can see how fast that happened. It didn't take long. The other thing I'll do when I'm doing this kind of stuff is I'll put this on a towel and kind of press out the water from both sides just to get as much water off of it as possible on the towel. Don't let it dry all the way, but I'll let it dry the time. It'll just dry like this. If you've been in our shop, in our bathroom, I have and trim these threads away if there's any weird threads hanging off. But she's pretty much good to go now. Now, when she's all dry, if it's curling or anything a little bit, you can take a pressing cloth, put it on top of the thread, and then press it with an iron. If after she's dry, she's a little curly, then do the thing we talked about where you the stabilizer in water and make it the shape that you want. Isn't that cool though? So that's that. We're going to talk about embroidery box in a minute. Next, we're going to talk thread. There is metallic thread in there. Metallic thread is not all created equally. If you come in with a weird thing about your machine, or you've got weird grooves cut into your machine somewhere, DJ's going to ask if you're using metallic thread. And if you say, yeah, I've used metallic thread before, he's going to ask you what brand it is. And if you say other than about 2 brands, he's going to tell you that you're ruining your machine. Because most metallic threads actually have shards of metal in them. It makes it sparkly, but it also makes it really dangerous for your machine. Because the little metal shards will come off in your machine, they'll get stuck in things, they'll cut grooves in your machine. This is the metallic thread that we use. It's a polyester thread that has shiny metal threads interwoven to it. It's very soft, it's very supple, and you can stitch lots of really pretty designs with this without ruining your machine or your fingers. I've actually been I was playing with some metallic thread like this one time and literally got a splinter of metal stuck in my thumb. If it's going to go into your skin, it's going to jack up your machine, okay? So if you're thinking metallic thread, do us all a favor and get the Floriani metallic thread. Is it pricey? Uh-huh. But is it pretty? Very. Okay, so you don't need a special needle with it. You don't need a special bobbin with it. It just stitches really pretty. The next thing I want to talk about with freestanding lace, and I did this on purpose. This is the one time, so when you're doing it, most of the time when you're doing embroidery, you want to use a thin, even woven bobbin on your bottom side. So when I'm doing embroidery, I usually have 40 weight thread on the top and 60 or 80 weight thread on the bottom. When you're doing freestanding lace where you're going to see the back, you need to match your bobbin thread to your top. So, for instance, I stitched this out with all these different colors on the top, but I used a cream thread on the bottom. So, like right here, this should be pink, and it's actually kind of pink and cream. We're going to talk about how to get that balanced out. So not only do you want to put a matching thread, or you want to put the same thread in your bobbin when you're doing freestanding lace, you also want to make sure that you're using the right things on your machine.
I think people's videos are starting to freeze. Mine is as well.
Oh,
I've had 2 people comment, and I'm frozen in comments sold on Facebook.
All right, well, we're just going to keep going, and hopefully it'll buffer.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so when you're doing freestanding lace or anything that you can see the back of your stitching with, you want to put the same thread in the bobbin as in the top. People get a little weirded out by tension on their embroidery machine because the top thread pulls to the back. It's supposed to do that because you want the top thread to fill the whole space. Now, when you're doing freestanding lace, you can put the same thread in the bobbin so that when you see the back, the colors mesh together. They don't look like this, which is weird and kind of messy. The way you get that is, I don't know how other machines work, but I know that Brother machines and Baby Lock machines give you a second bobbin case. So when you get your embroidery machine, if you have a bobbin case that looks like this, will come in with your stuff. You'll have a bobbin case that has a blue or a green or a purple dot inside there. It's not just an extra bobbin case. This is your embroidery case. So here's the thing that people have the biggest trouble with their embroidery cases. They'll come in and they'll say their machine's locked up because what they did was they took this whole cover off. I can't get it to pop up now because I want it to.
You already got that off.
Oh, I do. You're right. I forgot this. So this comes off. It might not come off like that on your machine. You might have to take screws out, but this comes off. Your bobbin case is sitting inside. This is my sewing case. I put that in there on purpose so I could show you how to change it. This does not have a little dot. Now, the way to put your bobbin case in, your bobbin case will have a little white arrow on it. It's like a little triangle. And then there's a little white dot inside your machine where your bobbin case fits. Okay. When you put this in there, you take your bobbin case, you rotate the little fuzzy bit under your feed dogs, and those two things line up. See the little triangle and little circle? Those line up. And you drop that down inside the holder, okay? Of course, trying to get, there we go. If your bobbin case is sitting in there the right way, it'll wiggle. If it's not sitting in there, you had to push really hard. If it's in there like that, that's not the right kind of wiggle. It needs to sit flat in the holder, and then you should be able to wiggle it by just touching it, okay? Some machines, this thing comes off with screws. So what people will do is they'll put their bobbin case in, then they'll put this on top, and they'll screw those screws down really tight. And if this isn't in there right, then their needle gets jammed. So if that's ever happened to you, take your bobbin case out and set it in there the right way. Okay. So changing your bobbin case to being the embroidery bobbin case, matching your thread. So like this is the thread I typically do embroidery with. It's an 80 weight polyester thread. When I did the freestanding lace, I wanted to match my pink thread to my top thread. So I round bobbins for each one. Okay. All right. So the last thing we're going to talk about.
I think we lost video feed.
Did we? I'm going to keep recording it though. because I can still put it in comments. So, the last thing we're going to talk about is if you want to make towels, and with your towels, you want to see the front and the back. I don't want to hoop this. One, I don't want to get hoop burn on it, and I want to just set it in there. You can also get Wet and Gone as a tacky option. I forgot to talk about one thing anyway. The tacky paper has like wax paper one side and stabilizer the other. If you take out your bobbin top or your hoop top, set the paper side up, set your hoop top in the top, and press it down into the hoop, okay? We're just gonna smash that down in there. Now what you have is a paper side and a stabilizer side. We're gonna tighten that up. And then what you do is you take a sewing pin, doesn't matter what kind, and you're gonna make an X. You're just gonna scratch an X through the paper and pull up the inside of the paper. You peel all of these back and rip them off. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfect. Don't worry that you have tiny little bits of paper in there. Because then what you can do is take your towel, set it into the hoop, and just sort of pat it down, and now it's stuck in there. So when you're going to embroider a towel, you can use the tacky stabilizer. That's what I did here. See how it's in there? Now, since this is not a tearaway, I can't just rip it off. I've got to go soak it in water and get the stabilizer off. But this is a really good option for embroidering on towels. Now, what if you've got designs like this one, like this heart one that was very cute, and you want to make it look like freestanding lace, but it's not? So what I did was I took my Wet and Gone. You can do this in the tacky, or you can just put it in the hoop like that. Take a piece of organza. Isn't this stuff pretty? And you can set it down in the tacky hoop. Now you don't have to stitch it down, and now it's not going to wiggle away from you. And you can stitch out these designs on that. So now what happens is when I go and cut this away, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before where I trim really close to the edges here. Hopefully my water's still warm enough. When you're rinsing away your stabilizer, you want warm water, not cold water, not hot water. I'm going to trim most of that away. But now I've got the organza on the inside, so I can wash away the stabilizer that's underneath. And I wash away the stabilizer first. The water's a little bit cold, but I think it still worked. Then I can go back underneath, under or around the outside and trim away the extra bits of organza. And so now what I have is a sparkly heart with an embroidery design. Be really careful that when you trim away the extra organza, you're not cutting your threads, because that's going to take your stitching apart. But look how cute those are. So now you've got something that looks like freestanding lace, but it's got shiny little bits in the middle, and the organza held all those stitches together. Okay? All right, so now we're going to talk about the stuff we used. You're going to come over here, babe?
I should still switch it.
Yes. We're going to talk about the stuff that we used in today's demo. We used Wet and Gone. This is just the regular Wet and Gone. It comes in 3 sizes. 12 inches is number 101. 15-inch roll is number 102. And the 20-inch roll is number 103. The reason I typically use the 20-inch roll is because the 12-inch roll is $30, but the 20-inch roll is $45, and you get almost twice as much. And because of the width of the 20-inch width, I can just fold it in half, and it fits in almost all my hoops that way. So it's actually more cost-effective to get the bigger roll. Almost all my stabilizers, you can see on my rack, almost all my stabilizers are 20-inch wide because that gives me the most options. Depending on the size hoop you have, though. If your machine only has a 4x4 hoop, there's no reason to get anything bigger than the 12-inch roll. If you've got a 5x7 hoop, which is what I was just demoing in, the 20-inch roll is going to cost you less money because you can just fold it in half and put both layers in your hoop at once. Okay. Next, we talked about our embroidery subscription box, which is what that pink snowflake is going to be in February. You got a sneak peek. Nobody's seen it yet. This is an example of what we do in our embroidery subscription box. So, sort of like what I just did, that little demo. When you get the embroidery subscription box, you get a video of me showing you the details on the particular stabilizer you have, the different thread colors, how you're going to stitch it out, and how you're going to make your project, and you usually get an extra tool in your bundle for that month. So this was last month's project. In the bundle, you got the stabilizer, the batting, the fabric, and all the threads that it took to make that project. Plus, last month's bonus tool was hemostats. So what happens is if you have the subscription box, you either choose to have it shipped or you choose to pick it up. If you pick it up, you get it just like this. If you choose to have it shipped, I ship you the box. Somewhere between when I ship it and when you get it, you get an email that has the design, so you can download the design, has the video, and it has a coupon for the stabilizer that we use, so that when you make that one, you have a month and a half that you can get more, so you can make more of these cute little projects. So this was the mug rug we made last month. Isn't she cute? And this was a fun little project. We talked about sticky stabilizer, we talked about turning stuff, we talked about how to make a mug rug in last month's project. And if you liked this towel, this project that we showed today, this is a great bundle if you want to start to learn embroidery, because it comes with the 3 most commonly used stabilizer. They're 15-inch rolls of Perfect Stick, Power Mesh, and the Wet and Gone that we showed today. Plus, it comes with all of these embroidery designs to go with it. So if you're new to embroidery, this is a really good option. I'm also asking people how you would feel about maybe doing a little class on how to make these projects as like a download and go class. So I'm open for feedback on that. But this one is number 105. Okay. So these are the things we did in today's class. I really hope that this continued to record. And if it did, I will post it in the monkey house in a little bit. If it didn't, we might just have to redo it. I hope everybody learned something, and post questions in the comments if you need help with anything. Okay? So we will see you next week with a different project.